Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yamunatira Vanacharya Yamunatira Vanacharya Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Vishnu Paramahamsa Parivrajakacharya Stotra Shati His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Vishnu Paramahamsa Parivrajakacharya Stotra Shati Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Namacharya Shri Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Premsika Ho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shyamakunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Shri Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Shri Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Ganga Maya Ki Jai. Yamuna Maya Ki Jai. Tulsi Devi Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Shri Harinam Sankirtan Yagya Ki Jai. Transcendental Book Distribution Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to Shri Shri Guru and Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. I just have one question. Is this the correct verse from yesterday? Because I thought that this is what Dharmasutta Prabhu was reading from. 15:16. Yeah, I think so. Does anybody remember? Lord Brahma, who's carried by a swan airplane, at first could not see. We read this yesterday. Okay. Okay, yeah. So don't read the purport. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we're reading from Canto number 7, chapter 3, and now we'll read text 15:16 and go on with a few more texts. Dadarsha Pratichanam Valmika Trina Kichakai Pipili Kabir achirnam medas tvan mamsa shonitam nadadasha pratichanam valmika trinakichakai Pilika birachirnam medastvan mamsa shonitam nadadasha pratichanam valmika trinakichakai Pilika birachirnam medastvan mamsa shonitam Nadadasha pratichanam Valmika trinakichakai Vipilika birachirnam Medastvan mamsa shonitam. Please chant. Nadadasha pratichanam Chanam Kichinam Chinam Sunitam Tiksanam Chakam Okay. So we'll read the translation. Lord Brahma, who is carried by a swan airplane, at first could not see where Hiraṇyakaśipu was, for Hiraṇyakashipu's body was covered by an anthill and by grass and bamboo sticks. Because Hiraṇyakashipu had been there for a long time, the ants had devoured his skin, fat, flesh, and blood. Then Lord Brahma and the demigod spotted him, resembling a cloud-covered sun, heating all the worlds by his austerity. Struck with wonder, Lord Brahma began to smile, and then addressed him as follows. Lord Brahma said, O son of Kashyapa Muni, please get up, please get up. All good fortune unto you. You are now perfect in the performance of your austerities, and therefore I may give you a benediction. You may now ask from me whatever you desire, and I shall try to fulfill your wish. And then this, we'll read the purport here. Srila Madhvacharya quotes from the Skanda Purana, which says that Hiraṇyakashipu, having become a devotee of Lord Brahma, who is known as Hiranyagarbha, and having undergone a severe austerity to please him, is also known as Hiranyaka. Rakshasas and demons worship various demigods, such as Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva, just to take the post of these demigods. This we have already explained in previous verses. And then I'll also read the next verse. Translation of text number 18. I have been very much astonished to see you endurance. In spite of being eaten and bitten by all kinds of worms and ants, you are keeping your life air circulating within your bones. Certainly this is wonderful. And the commentaries. It appears that the soul can exist even through the bones, as shown by the personal example of Hiraṇyakashipu. When great yogis are in samadhi, even when their bodies are buried and their skin, marrow, blood, and so on have all been eaten, if only their bones remain, they can exist in a transcendental position. Very recently, an archaeologist published findings indicating that Lord Christ, after being buried, was exhumed, and then he went to Kashmir. There have been many actual examples of yogis being buried in trance and exhumed alive and in good condition several hours later. A yogi can keep himself alive in a transcendental state, even if buried, not only for many days but for many years. No. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Dena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shutapada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijanas Hitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahaganala Lita Shiva Shakanvitamscha Avancha Kalpatrubhischa Kripa Sindhubhe Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shiva Sari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna, everyone. So we are reading about Hiraṇyakashipu's plan to become immortal. And he wanted to become immortal for the purpose of being deathless. And he wanted to get benedictions from the demigods. And therefore he went to the valley of Mandara mountain and began practicing this severe austerity. It's actually not his first austerity. He attempted one before that, and I'll get to it a little bit later. But what we see here in this text, that there's no denial that the world is made in such a way that austerity is always required. Whether we want to be advancing in material or spiritual life, it's a necessity of life. And in modern world, people are trying to make it different. They're trying to make it easy. So you can just swipe the card or click a few buttons on your phone and you get to where you want and what you need. But this is not how the world is made to be. And we see in here that, for instance, in this part of the Bhagavatam, that Hiraṇyakashipu is performing an austerity for the purpose of getting benedictions to lord over the entire universe and take the position of Lord Brahma. And it is explained that he was standing with his toes on the ground, keeping his arms up like that. And he was looking toward the sky. And if you think about it, it's a very difficult position to be in. It's a very difficult asana to practice. So it definitely requires a deep concentration and determination. And also control of the mind. Just imagine they're standing for even over 2 minutes in such position. The whole entire body would probably be numb from keeping our hands up like that. And not only that, but you also have to balance yourself in that pose. And if you fall down, your austerity is gone. You have to start all over. So it's very difficult to practice this austerity and practically impossible if you don't have control over the mind. And then we might ask a question is that how then it was possible for Hiraṇyakashipu to practice this austerity if his own name means that he's after sense gratification? Hiranya means gold and Kashipu means soft cushion or soft bed. Or another question might be is that usually what we see is that tapasya usually purifies an individual. But in this case, it didn't purify Hiraṇyakashipu at all. And so the word that perfectly describes this in Sanskrit, it's called sankalpa. And sankalpa means it's the ability when you're able to curtail the entire flow of your thoughts and concentrate on something that is extremely important to you and make it your priority in life. Or in other words, it's a very, very strong type of determination. Determination in Sanskrit, dridhi. And I'd like to give a few examples about strong determination. For instance, I remember studying this in history classes when I was going to school. In Russia or in Soviet Union, in the beginning of the last century, there was many revolutions taking place, specifically for the purpose of establishing socialism or communistic government. And one of that revolutions was called Great October Socialist Revolution. And there were many individuals who would undergo severe austerities. They would kill people, they would go and make riots, and they had to undergo severe austerities. Weather conditions in Russia are very, very tough. So they would, and sometimes they would starve or be imprisoned. So this is the example of determination for the material benefit. And if communistic system is, as we know, it's not the ideal system, even though it's meant to share all the wealth between individuals. There's no ownership, but because we're lacking God consciousness in the center, it doesn't work. And we saw that in Soviet Union, it eventually didn't work. And so Srila Prabhupada says that there's some similarities between communism and Krishna consciousness. One of which is that the grihastas, for instance, they have to share food when they prepare a lunch, for instance. They have to call everyone on the street and invite them to their house and feed all of the people like that. And within a temple, we're also supposed to do that if it's possible. So that's one similarity that Srila Prabhupada mentioned when he was speaking with Kotovsky, the teacher, Professor Kotovsky, from when he visited Russia. And so modern society, they take the people as a whole as the proprietor of a certain state. But the Vedic conception is that Ishvara Idam Sarvam, there's got to be God in the center. And everything's owned by Isha, so everything should be dovetailed and used in service to Ishvara. Tena taktena bunjita, we may enjoy only things that are allotted to us by nature, by the supreme arrangement. And magridaka siddhanam means that we should not encroach upon other people's properties, like that. And this is mentioned in the Shisha Upanishad. And I remember meeting yesterday, I was at La Jolla Cove. Yesterday was kind of a slow day, but I met one person, and he was a homeless person, and he spoke Russian. And I actually turned out that I met him before. It was not the first time me speaking with him. So I asked him this question: is you're homeless, but how do you? Because he told me he spent some time in the desert, like 5 or 6 months, away from people. He didn't speak with anybody. And I was wondering, just how do you get by? What do you use for money? How do you eat? Those basic things. And he just told me that I am trying to practice this thing. I'm trying to depend on nature, on universe. And sometimes my friends, they know what I'm doing, so they bring food to me like that. So, and he was also familiar with a little bit of Bhagavad Gita and the Vedic teachings and chanting mantras. And I tried giving him a book, but because he didn't have any money, he couldn't give a donation. And also I offered him to chant together, just chant Hare Krishna. And he said, I'm not going to do that. I have a different purpose in life. And it was actually being, you could say, offensive, because his idea was that he wants to see Krishna directly. And I brought a book in, I think in Gujarati, and where there's a cover where Krishna puts a hand on Arjuna's shoulder like that. And that's what this guy told me. I want to see Krishna like that. I want him to put a hand on my shoulder. And well, I told him that this is not the way to understand Krishna. I attempted to tell him and explain that Krishna is only, it's only possible to understand Krishna by bhakti, bhakti mama bhajanati. But then he disagreed with me, and eventually I just told him to go, go away, like that. So, and I also remember the one time I was, me and Govardhan, and before that also me, we went to the campus at UCSD, and we saw, there's a lot of vendors there, maybe like 20 vendors. They're promoting different things there. And one of those vendors, there was a communistic party, and they were yelling something to people, hey, get your life straight and join our party, like that. And surprisingly enough, people were talking to them, and people were taking their pamphlets and buying their books, which they were selling for very cheap price, but still, people have interest in communism. So therefore, we should offer them spiritual communism, like that. But then, in the Bhagavad Gita, we see that it's explained about determination, that any person who is desirous or desiring fruitive result in his determination, whether it's going to be a religious or economical activity, then this desire, it means that he's trying to enjoy, he's trying to be benefited by it himself, and his mind, life, and senses, they engaged in the mode of passion. And also there's description of determination, mode of goodness, which is completely unbreakable, avyabhicharinya, without any break. And also it's supported by yoga practice, which means that you learn how to control the mind, control your senses, different urges of your body. And then you fixate your intelligence on the Supreme Absolute, like that. So that is determination in the mode of goodness. And we rarely see that, of course, in modern life. But then also describe determination in mode of ignorance, which is, it doesn't go beyond dreaming. People sleep so much, like that. And also it means that you experience fear, illusion, lamentation. Pretty much what you're trying to do is you're trying to be a little Ishvara, a little controller of everything that you see, like that. And we can also relate this determination factor to book distribution. And it was such an amazing story that was posted yesterday by Parameshwar Prabhu. It's called Unexpected Request from a Professor at the university. I have it. I want to read it, actually. Vijay Prabhu was, he sends this interesting stories on email. And if anyone wants to join to that newsletter, you can text him and he'll sign you up. All you need to do is just have your email. It's a bit long, but I'll try to just read the whole thing. It's quite mystical. So Parameshwar Prabhu, a legendary book distributor, he was having difficulties at the University of North Florida in Jacksonville one day, and 2 days before that at the University of Central Florida, he says, in Orlando. So people were so much humiliating me. These were my worst days on the campus. I became so tired, he says. For the first time in my life, I wrapped up and finished one day by 1 p.m. And he only was able to collect $261, which is a lot for our individual, of course. Just a small amount. And then he distributed less than 50 books, he says. And the next day, and that means he was struggling. So the next day, he went to the University of South Florida in Tampa, and it was raining the whole day. So the next school was 4 hours away, Atlantic University in Boca Raton. And he was asking himself whether I should go or not, and eventually he decided to go. And then 4 hours. And then this is where this beautiful story happened. So he went there, and suddenly from nowhere, he received a message from His Holiness Rampad Swami, and he sent him a short video of Srila Prabhupada. And then, after watching it, he felt emotional and started crying. Then he started praying very intensely. Srila Prabhupada, today's Srimad Bhagavatam said should get distributed, should get in someone's hands. Just pray very fervently, and Lord Krishna, saying, Lord Krishna, for the sake of Srila Prabhupada, please send someone to take the Srimad Bhagavatam set. And unexpectedly, a man came to his stable. He's a professor at the university, and he had a small book, Introduction to Bhagavad Gita. And apparently somebody just left it on the campus, and he picked it up.
No, he said someone had thrown it down on the floor to pick it up
off the ground. Mm-hmm. So with great surprise and amazement on his face, he asked me, are you Hare Krishna? Can you please give me the second canto of Srimad Bhagavatam? And Parameshwar Prabhu asked him, why don't you take the whole set? In the future, you may need it. And the professor said, all right, I'll take it. Like that. And then he told him that it was a very special day. It was the day before anniversary of Srila Prabhupada's disappearance. He looked at me, Parameshwar said, deeply, gazing into my eyes. And then the professor asked him again, do you have a Chaitanya Charitamrita set as well? And he told him, yes, I do. And I can also get that for you, why not? So this is the mystery of Srila Prabhupada's and Lord Krishna's mercy. He prayed, and literally made this solid demand to Krishna. Lord Krishna, please, if you care for Srila Prabhupada, then send me someone to ask for Srimad Bhagavatam set. And Lord Krishna sent a person who won this Bhagavatam in Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. And he says it was the easiest distribution I ever encountered. I never even approached the person, but he came willingly to the table to get these books. It's amazing. I actually had a similar experience. I was one day chanting in a temple room, and all of a sudden I had this thought that I want to distribute Srimad Bhagavatam. And I started praying to Krishna, let me please be an instrument in your hands, and let me get one Srimad Bhagavatam set out. And later on, I went to Balboa Park, and it was a miraculous event that someone actually came over to me, and that person, he was from India, and he told me that his wife, she's very much interested in Bhagavad Gita, and he thought actually that I'm distributing the set and it's Bhagavad Gita. He thought that the set means it's a Srimad Bhagavad Gita. He called his wife and asked her, I'm going to get this Bhagavad Gita, it's a full version. Like that. So he took the whole set and made a donation. I tried, but he didn't understand. So yeah, determination is very important. Whatever we desire to fulfill in our Krishna consciousness, if there's any desires related to Krishna, is in service to Krishna, then Krishna fulfills those desires sooner or later. I'm sure all of us had that experience before. And another example in Shastra about determination is when Dronacharya was teaching Pandavas how to, he was testing them in shooting arrows. And so one day he set up a small wooden bird in a tree. And he said, today I want to see who among you can strike the eye of that wooden bird. And they were standing across the river. So first he called Yudhishthira and he said, Yudhishthira, come. Can you see the bird? He said. And Yudhishthira looked at the bird and he said, I see the bird, I see the tree, I see the leaves, I see the branches, I see other trees like that. And then Drona stopped him and said, no. Put down your bow. Take a seat. You will not hit the target, the eye. And then one by one, he asked Bhima and Nakula and Sahadev to also come and try to aim for the eye. And then they say the same thing. They said, "Yeah, we see the water, we see the grass, we see the trees, the branches." And he said, "No, this is not the way." Then. Yeah, what do you see? What do you see? And they would tell him, we see the grass, we see the stream, the water, the branches, the tree. And then he told them, no, sit down. And then eventually Arjuna, he said, please Arjuna, come. And again he asked him, what do you see, Arjuna? And Arjuna said that I can only see the eye of the bird. And then Dronacharya said, do you see the tree? Do you see the branch? Do you see the water, the grass? And they said, no, I can only see the eye of the bird and nothing else, said Arjuna. And then Dronacharya said, shoot. And Arjuna shot the arrow and it sprang from the bow straight into the eye of the bird like that. And it was a perfect shot, perfect shot. Everyone looked at Arjuna with complete amazement. And then Drona came over to him, patted on his back like that and said, you see, young boys, this is the power of concentration. And so the conclusion is that it's concentration or determination is very important in if you want to achieve something, sankalpa. And when we're completely absorbed in something, when our consciousness is completely fixed on the absolute truth, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then we no longer see the duality, whether internal or external. And if it's fixed in a different way, as what we see with Hiraṇyakaśipu, we can still attain the result, but it's going to be the result of passion or ignorance. So this is the power of determination. And another point I wanted to bring up today is that we see in this text that the demigods, they were extremely disturbed by Hiraṇyakaśipu. So they asked Lord Brahma to come help him. And we see that Lord Brahma, he was accompanied by Brigu, Daksha, and great sages. He comes to that Mandara hill and finds Hiraṇyakaśipu there. And his body was completely covered by anthill. And his body was eaten. There was grass and bamboo sticks. It was hard to see. But because there was a great heat coming from his body, they saw a cloud-covered sun over there at that spot where Hiraṇyakaśipu was performing austerity. This is how they were able to spot him. And so Lord Brahma came, and the funniest thing is that when he saw him, the first thing he said, please stop, get up, stop doing this austerity, you already achieved the perfection. But ultimately he wanted to help the demigods. But instead of helping, he gave him benedictions. And now in this part where we read here, Lord Brahma is starting to speak to Hiraṇyakaśipu, and he's telling him that you can ask for me whatever you like, for any benedictions. Because he was very astonished to see his endurance in performing that austerity. It is described that he was keeping his life air circulating within the bones. It's amazing. In normal condition, it's not possible to do that by anybody. But I mean, also it says that only the yogis can do that. Even if they bury it in trance, they can still continue living for several hours or even days. And in the third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, it is explained how this movements of air are functioning within the body. They are generated from the heart, and then all activities of the body are made possible by the senses. And so they're powered by the 10 kinds of air within the body. And I'll just mention the main ones, which we know. Prana, it's responsible for beating of the heart, the working of the organs, muscle contraction, and also it responds to a state of mind, because the physical body always responds to a subtle body. For instance, if we find something funny, we begin to laugh, and that's how the air, the prana, reacts. It contracts the muscles on our face, and we start laughing. And then there's Udana, Vyana, Samana. They regulate the movements of within the body in different directions like that. Apana is responsible, another one, Apana is responsible for when the soul is being pushed out of the body at the time of death, for instance. And this is what yogis are trying to achieve. They're trying to how to say, move the airs to the upper part of their body, to the cerebral hole, like that, so they can leave the body and go to further to higher planetary systems. So, yeah, like that. And it is described in the Bhagavad Gita in the 8th chapter that there are 2 ways to live the body, one in light and one in darkness. And the basic, what it means, if a person passes away and he lives through the upper body, then he goes somewhere further in his destination. He goes to higher planets. But if he lives through the down part of the body, sometimes we see that people live their body through anus or different. How do you correctly call it? The lower genitals, yeah. So genitals, so the anus, they live, and that means they go to hellish planets, to lower planets, like that. Mm-hmm. And I also mentioned here that Jesus Christ it is found that he was buried, but he continued living and went to Kashmir after everyone thought they buried him. It is mentioned, I looked it up, it is mentioned that there were some silent years, and I think Dharma Sutta Prabhu also was mentioning that yesterday. Between 12 and 29, those are the silent years of Jesus Christ. And it looks like he journeyed to India and spent some time inquiring about self-realization from different gurus within different traditions. And after the resurrection, he returned to India again to leave his body there. And he was buried in Kashmir. It says that the reason why he went there, one of the reasons, I don't know if it's exactly true, but it says that he met up with some children of Israel there who were in different tribes, and he was trying to preach to them the message of peace, love, and brotherhood. And it reminded me of a book distribution story. One time I met this lady, her name is Stephanie, and she was raised as a Catholic. And she was telling me that somehow or other she was trying to read the Bible, the Old and New Testaments, but she couldn't really get a lot of details from it, a lot of details about how to surrender to God, what is the spiritual kingdom looks like, and what are we going to be doing there. He was trying to understand how do I find God within my heart. And she was asking me questions like, what is the difference between these books, Bhagavad Gita, Quran, and the Bible? And I just mentioned that we see in society that people, they engage in religious activities for different purposes, whether it's prosperity or sense enjoyment or liberation. But mostly what we see is that it's motivated by some means, by some material means. Sometimes people just want to maintain their social status so they can be seen as good people going to the church on Sunday. Or further, they want to ask something from God. They want to have some opulence in life. They want to live a good life, as they say. So this is usually where we see the purpose of religion. And this I try explaining to her, and she thought that it makes sense. And she told me that I'm actually interested in Bhagavad Gita. I live in Vancouver, and I remember I mentioned the temple, the great temple there. And she said, I think I know that place. I drove by that place multiple times. There's a big statue of someone, and I was wondering who that is. And that's a big statue of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu there. You can see it from miles away. And she has a husband. He's from India. So I asked him, well, your husband is from India. Why you never came? And she said, well, I don't really want to get into details of that, but he seems a little bit disappointed with how he was raised and religion in India. So he said, no, we're not going to go there. We're not going to go there. And she said, I'm really interested to go, so I'm just going to go by myself one day. And I said, yeah, sure, it's a good idea. You should totally do that. Like that. And one interesting thing about resurrection, or when people in the 18th and 19th century, there was this conception of buried prematurely. And sometimes people would die. There was a disease, the epidemic. Is it called cholera? Cholera? Cholera, yeah, cholera. So people would die from that disease, but often they would see that they would bury somebody and there were still symptoms of life within the coffin. And so what they would do is they would string a string on muscles of a person, and if they would see movements, they dig the person out of the coffin, maybe if there's hope for life like that. So this is what they did in 18th and 19th century. Actually, Dharmasitra Prabhu mentioned to me after class, and I made a joke that if in Russia, if you try doing that, even if the person is showing symptoms of life, they would just say, I'm tired of that person, I'm not going to help them. That was just a joke. But anyway, I mentioned that this is not the first attempt of Hiraṇyakaśipu performing this great austerity to get benedictions from the demigods. And it is described in Narasimha Purana that first attempt was when before his son Prahlada Maharaj was born, he went to the mountain Kailas to perform this austerity to get benedictions. And at that time, there was a lot of storms and bad weather conditions, so people dear to him, relatives and friends and his wife, they tried stopping him from going there. They thought that this is not a good sign for you to perform austerity. But he still went and caused great trouble to demigods again, for the first time. And Lord Brahma was trying to figure out what to do. So there was Narada Muni. He asked for help of Narada Muni with another Rishi Parvata, and they went to Mount Kailash to spot where Hiraṇyakaśipu was performing his austerity, and then they found him there. And what they decided to do is they decided to chant this names of Vishnu. They chanted Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudeva very loudly, and they chanted it for 3 times. And so Hiraṇyakaśipu, he was disturbed by it because he didn't like Lord Vishnu. He didn't like the name of Lord Vishnu, especially hearing it when he was performing austerity. So he stopped his austerity and he tried killing these birds. He shot an arrow at these birds, and his attempt to get benedictions was vanquished. And then he went back home to his wife, Kayadhu. And at that time, she was done with the menstrual cycle. So she was waiting for him for a long time, and she thought that he's going to be gone for thousands of years performing this austerity. And specifically, it said 10,000 of years. That was his plan. And then she was so eager to see him, so she embraced him, and they began, you know, they were having a sexual intercourse. And in that sexual intercourse, she was asking, she was talking to him, asking, what happened? Why did you come back so early? And he described what happened. He tried performing austerity, but then these birds, they disturbed him. They started chanting the name of God, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. And at that time, he released the semen. It is described. And like that, this is how a great devotee of Lord Vishnu, Prahlada Maharaj, was born. This is what is described in Nrsimha Purana as his first attempt to perform austerity. It's a very interesting story. So, the word tapa, correct me if I'm wrong, Jivira Prabhu, but it also, there's a meaning that deep concentration on something, another meaning. Tapa, austerity and concentration. And ability of a worldly people to concentrate, as we see now, is very weak. I looked up on the internet, it's actually, the attention span is about 8.25 seconds. So if you want to get a good advice for book distribution, make it quick, because they wouldn't be able to stay with you for such a long time. Of course, there's some inquisitive people, like that Stephanie. She was very inquisitive. We were speaking for maybe 30 or 40 minutes. She was asking questions and trying to relate what she understands to her understanding. So sometimes people are ready for that, but most of the time, people they can't really spend much time with you. And if you know the goldfish, they attention span is a little bigger than their human beings, 9 seconds. Of course, we don't know how correct this is, but that's what I found on the internet. And sometimes we go to Srimad Bhagavatam class, or we perform some devotional activities, or even reading or chanting. And sometimes we can't really give so much attention to hearing, and due to maybe, you know, being tired, didn't have enough sleep. But I've just had a realization that we chanting the holy name of God, and we trying to, our acharyas say that we should be very, very attentive. We should be very attentive to chanting, and we should try hearing. But it also should be related to hearing the message of Srimad Bhagavatam, or speaking with devotees. For instance, we can hear to respond, but we should actually hear to really understand what the person is saying to us, or what the message is of the class of Srimad Bhagavatam. And of course, I have many problems with that, and I'm also learning that science. But if we just hear it attentively, then this chanting of Hare Krishna mantra, instead of being a tapasya and a great austerity, it's going to be just a very joyful experience that I'm going to be looking forward to. Just even if we just chant one round very attentively, like that, very attentively, it will leave us with a great impression, and we'll be looking forward to, because there's going to be a feeling that, because Krishna will reciprocate with us, and we'll be looking forward to that experience the next morning, and the next morning, and the next morning. So chanting is really, really, it could be nectar, not an austerity, because we'll be getting purified. We'll be getting purified, situated in our position, which is Krishna Nitya Das, an eternal servant of God. And then we'll be chanting out of love, Sharanagati. And as an example that I came up with, and I thought of, is that sometimes we have pets when we're growing up. We used to have, most of us, we used to have pets. And I specifically remember I had a hamster when I was growing up. And I was always thinking about the hamster when I was away from home. I had love for that pet. And so I'm meditating on what I'm going to give to that hamster, how I'm going to see him and be so happy. And similarly, if we do so, to direct that attention and that love towards Krishna, this would be the ideal practice. And sometimes we can't really make it very far. We're not progressing in bhakti. And I remember reading in the Bhagavad Gita in the sixth chapter, there was Srila Prabhupada was explaining in the commentaries to one of the texts that sometimes we're not experiencing progress because we're actually not serious about the practice. We're not taking it seriously. We think that we're going to chant and it's going to be okay. I'm still young. I have a long life to live, so I'll just chant and it'll be okay. But no, we don't know when it's gonna happen, when the life will be taken away. So we should declare war to the illusory energy, and it's difficult. But if we don't do that, what is actually left for us? We're going to be seduced, allured by it, and fall down. So I guess the message that I have for you today is, and for myself, is that we should be very much determined to take up this practice very seriously, with great determination, and not being deviated by other different means of the byproducts of bhakti, mystical powers or anything else. So we should take it seriously and dedicate this one life, because our acharyas say that if we just seriously practice in one life, then we'll be able to achieve perfection. I think Bhaktivinoda Thakur said that the first life you practice sadhana bhakti and then raganuga bhakti. But Srila Prabhupada, he didn't say that to us. He just promised that one lifetime we can finish everything. So yeah, let's hope that we all can do that and meet again in the spiritual world. Hare Krishna. And please, questions or comments, corrections.
Comment about, you mentioned about that part of the 8th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, in which Krishna talks about if you leave in the light, you leave in the dark, and so many things. And you described it in such a way which is completely consistent with what the impression may get, which is that anyone who leaves at this time will go up, back to Godhead, whatever. And anyone who leaves during the dark. But that's not what's being described. It's all about the yogis. Those who are, if you look carefully, it's talking about those who are conversing with Brahman, then if they leave at the time of the fire or the light, then they go back to Godhead or up anyway. But it's not that anyone, because people leave at all times. And they're just, they're with their consciousness, mode of goodness, passion, or ignorance, and that will determine where they go. So it's all about the advanced yogis, and he's speaking there about Ashtanga yogis, not Bhakti yogis, because then near the end, the devotees know about this, but they don't worry about it. Right, because it's in other words, whether it's middle of the night or it's light. If they remember Krishna, then they go back to Godhead.
Yeah.
So it's a different thing, and that so we're revising that, so it says that.
Yeah. So it's related to Ashtanga yoga practice. But I also heard that people who live at that very auspicious moment, they also get benefited somehow or other. They get benefit.
Yeah, there may be some benefit to it, but it's not perfection.
They can't go back to Godhead just because they were lucky.
Help you a little bit with a few pronunciation of English words, not Sanskrit.
That's fine. Yeah. Okay.
It's such a crazy language, So many words are spelled the same. Like I heard Prabhupada on a tape, he was talking about. No, he was talking about the word wound, like the wound up, but he pronounced it wound. Why not? It's the same spelling, but it sounds different contexts.
Oh, yeah.
So from a foreign country, you have the same problem with a few. I'll share them with you.
Yeah, please, thank you. Anyone else have a question? Bhakti chat?
It was a really great lecture. And I liked the part when you talked about focusing intently with determination on chanting a round of japa and starting small and building up. Mm-hmm. I think that was very important. And I also wanted to know what a Russian hamster looks like.
I guess there's not much difference. It's the same. Like that. Yeah, it's important. It's something that we should really dedicate. Japa is the most important thing that we have in our spiritual life, and it should be done in the morning hours. And if we don't want to chant, if there's some periods in life that we feel that we are discouraged to chant, one thing that can help us, if we just come and be in presence of devotees like that. We just come all together and start chanting. Or another thing that I'm learning, I'm actually taking this online from my Guru Maharaj, is Grace Chaitanya Chandracharan Prabhu. They set up the school online where we learn about different intricacies about chanting, and also there's something about Grihastha ashram and things like that. So yeah, I'm learning that it's important to have there's an activity, then there's the energy of desire, and and knowledge. So it's important to engage them in this practice of chanting. We should desire to be engaged in service to Krishna. That should be our desire to just do it for the pleasure of Radha and Krishna. And also we should be in knowledge of what is that chanting? Why are we chanting? What is the goal of chanting? We should understand who we're calling out to. So we should hear the pastimes, learn about Krishna, and like that. And activity means taking our time to practice, to chant. So these three energies, they should be engaged. And if we're just able to hear attentively when we sit down, of course it's impossible for anybody just to sit down and for 2 hours hear every single syllable. It's important. Even Uttama Adhikari cannot do that. But we should try. We should build up to it, and it really helps if you just say that I'm going to chant attentively 1 round, then another day 2 rounds, 4 rounds, like that. It really will help. It will boost your life. It will actually make you feel so happy and energized and connected, and you will remember Krishna much easier if you try doing that like that. But yeah, we have to. And Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Vanchakalpatarubhishcha.